Good morning once more. Episode 100. If this was a sitcom, I'd be going into syndication now. You could drive home from work, find an episode of my videos crammed between a rerun of Friends and a rerun of The Simpsons. They'd cut a minute out so they could add a couple extra commercials in. Yeah, not a good idea. So, back to looking at what we've been painting, and I've been doing a lot of painting, either while making videos or between videos. Just going to go over some of this. So we've uh, got some, let's lower the camera a bit. Some furniture here. And most of this they made modular. So this is like a testing, school type thing, fighting school. So we got the rack with all the stuff in it. And this was all you could glue it on in any order you wanted. The shield was actually came separate. I just leaned it up against there. As you can see, we got a second one where I put two shields on it, and the stuff's in different order. Then we got a couple standing suits of armor where you can, bang on them. One of them I put a shield on the back, just had an extra shield. Then we got these two straw dummies you can beat on. It's all test stuff for a school. Also with that came some targets, which don't want to stand up, so I did them separate. They both look like this. Painted them both the same painting scheme. Great thing about these is you can play Star Trek Enterprise with them. Speaking of furnitures and background stuff, I found they had, I don't know what game you would use with a dumpster. Now, I like this one. This was actually a fun one. Easy to paint, but it was fun to paint too, because you could do all the details. You could do, the lid, the inside of the lid. They don't have the paint job on it all the way, so I did it as metal. I've never seen a dumpster which didn't have paint peeling off, so I just put some metal patches on from place to place. The garbage, they actually did some cube-looking stuff, so you got stuff that looks like it's actually supposed to be a box. This pile of stuff here, which looks like it's supposed to be trash bags, they did well. But they also have just a bunch of generic, just sort of lumpy stuff in there. Piece of cloth hanging over the back. So you were able to do detailed stuff if you want. You could also just do sort of random. This is a pile of miscellaneous stuff. So you didn't have to do the coloring really detailed, but you could if you wanted to. Got the little bottle and can on the outside ledge there, which you see often in dumpsters for some reason. People stand out there and drink something. Put some rust spots on it, put some splatter marks on it, because I've never seen a dumpster where someone didn't splatter stuff on it while throwing it in. So while it's a very simple thing to paint, it was also very fun to paint, because you could go back and you could just do all these little detailed things which weren't a part of the sculpt, but they are realistic. So this was a fun one to paint. Okay, into more character type people. So you have baby dragon groups. And these, again, dragons you can pretty much paint any color you want. But I painted these the color that is on the box there. This was actually a green hatchling dragon, a blue hatchling dragon, a red hatchling dragon, and a black hatchling dragon. And like I said, thing I didn't like about these is they're just too small. So trying to do any detail work, it just blurred. So these are not the greatest painting jobs I've done on dragons. If they were bigger, I could have done a better job on them. Speaking of bigger dragons, let's do it. So, Wyvern. Not a very pretty sculpt. It's sort of a weird position on it. So this is a new one. And this is back when Reaper switched over to resin, so this works good because it's lightweight. I also had in storage, this was back when they were doing everything in pewter. And the problem with this is, so this is it's a better sculpt, it's nicer, but it's all metal. So all the stonework I have on the base, that's sculpting putty. That's not part of the sculpt. This thing was top heavy. It still wants to fall forward because it's metal. It's heavy. I got it based. I based my stuff on washers, so they have some weight, and I got putty on it. It's still a little top heavy. So if they made this in resin, recast this in resin, it would be a great piece because it wouldn't be top heavy, and you could, with a minimal amount of basing, you could have it so it would stand up. But here, it's good for display. If I were to actually try to play with this, it would be falling over all the time. And so, like I said, I love the sculpt, but the material on this just isn't very good. Or it makes it not good. Okay, got some generic people. And this is just, yeah, I should probably start doing these just one at a time because trying to rotate them. Oh, that's where this guy went. That guy's not a person. The rest of these are people. There's a set of 3 guards. I painted them with different color schemes just so I can tell the difference between them. And I only have 2 guards right here. The other one is somewhere else. But these are just people, generic people I did. Okay, we got, let's do these guys separate. So we got some goblin / miscellaneous creatures. Let's space these guys out a little more. So, generic goblin, fighting goblin. Now this guy, more modern games are starting to make it so you can play goblin characters. They aren't just things. So they made a goblin with a one-man band goblin. It was sort of fun to paint, just reach in, and it took some skill, reaching the brush in between all the little cracks. So it was sort of fun to paint. Like I said, now that you can play goblins, I won't be surprised if people started doing these and having the goblin bard, and he's just a one-man band. Then they had this weird, I don't know, forest spirit type creature. I don't know. He's not really a goblin. He's, I don't know. Just put him on with the goblins because he's sort of similar to them. Had all these things. Can't really see them very well. All these things on his belt. They look like faces. So I don't know if those are just some decorative thing or he supposedly peels people's faces off. Sort of hard to paint them, so it's hard to tell what they were. And got some skeletons. Sort of a, I don't know. Looks sort of like a primal primitive skeleton with the head there. Doesn't look quite human. So I don't know if this is supposed to be some sort of lizard man skeleton or not. Doesn't have a tail. Got this guy here who, at first I thought this was a hat he was wearing, and it turns out, looking closer, it's like he's got hair, but the face looks like it's supposed to be a skeleton, so I don't know what's going on with this guy. Looks a little more bulky than a skeleton because he got clothes on him. So again, not sure what their idea with this guy was. Speaking of bulky, this guy's obviously got a skull for a head, but they put him in armor so he looks bulky. So this one, I was a little meh on this one totally, just because it's obviously a skeleton. He looks bigger than a skeleton. Then I noticed, interesting thing here, don't know if you'll be able to see it. While I was painting the back of his thigh, don't know if there it is, you can see that little white stripe there. It's actually a femur they sculpted on. So he's got the thigh armor, and then behind it he's got the femur. And so I saw that, I thought, that's sort of neat the way they did that. They recognize this as a skeleton character. So on the one hand, he looks bulky. On the other hand, they sort of tried to justify his bulkiness, and the boots throw it off. I don't see a skeleton wearing boots that big. Maybe that's part of it, but interesting idea. Okay, had some more orcish looking people. And so, orc with a sword, orc with a bigger sword, orc with an axe. And then just because I had room on my little display tube here, Any sort of demon-looking guy, or I don't know, dragon man with wings. I'm not sure what they called him. Okay. Saber-toothed tiger. Fairly easy to paint. I mean, the thing with this is just a matter of getting the stripes on his back. Other than that, he's pretty straightforward. Some sort of dire wolf. Again, fairly straightforward. Paint him one color, do some dry brush to get some different coloring. The Rocky series. So they made a baby dragon called Rocky, who they made larger. Not really meant to be played with. These were just meant for, ooh, it's a cute little thing to paint. And so I painted it. And I did them in different colors. So I did a blue Rocky. Then we got Rocky on his treasure hoard, which can't really see the treasure hoard. There we go. Made him red. And Rocky's fun to paint. It's easy to paint too, because you can do the eye. You can do more details on the eyes because he's bigger, stuff like that. And I noticed this was meant to be a paintbrush holder, and so you can put your paintbrush on. Does this one green? One thing I noticed, he's also got the treasure hoard, and there's things like he's got this mug, and there's a sword on the front and stuff like that, and all of those are also on this one. So he doesn't have the treasure chest like this has, but he's got the mug there, he's got the sword there. So it's the same Rocky, same treasure hoard for Rocky there. And this was an interesting one. This is like called the Well of Horrors or the Well of Terrors or something like that. It's basically this brain creature with tentacles rising out of a well. And then again, not sure which game you would use this for, if there even is a game. This is one that had to be glued together. It's like you had the well part, you had the brain part, then you had the 5 tentacles all as separate pieces. And so there's the big question of, do I paint them separately and glue it together? In which case I'm going to have these different parts laying apart, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get them together properly once I got all the paint on them. Or do I glue it together and then I gotta try to reach in, I want to paint this bit but I don't want to get paint on the other bit around it, so I ended up gluing it together first. And so while I'm painting this, I'm like trying to twist it around so I can see what I'm working on. Supposedly inspired by Lovecraft, so I did like the weird purple with brown tentacles just because nothing makes logical sense in Lovecraft, so I just randomness. And then the last one we got here is, well, actually not the last one. Got these. These are supposed to be like some weird cave creatures. This is something that would fly, but they've got a little stalactite for him to rest on, so he's not just doing that. This weird worm-like creature. Again, not sure what he's supposed to be. Then just because he fit on the same tray with them, I did this pterodactyl / space creature. And interesting thing with him is I was like, okay, it's a pterodactyl creature, so cool, looks cool. Then as I was painting him, looking at him, it's like, those aren't really wings. Those are like a cloak he has. So I wasn't sure, should I paint those as wings or should I paint them as a cloak, or how should I do this? And so it was an interesting thing. Once I got started, I wasn't quite sure how to stop. And then the last thing I did was this giant creature. And at first I wasn't sure, is this supposed to be a giant or is it supposed to be just an oversized figure? Because sometimes they make those. And well, carrying a deer on its back, so this is a giant, obviously, some sort of woodland giant, I would assume. That's it. That's what I've been painting since the last time we did a behind-the-scenes video. Light coming from the windows, putting some glare on it, and I've got to find a better way to display things. I'm sure If I had less of them, I wouldn't have done them on the little display trays, and you would have been able to see them a lot better. But because I had so many, I figured that would be the fastest way to do it. Uh, Hopefully next time I won't have as many to show, and we won't. We'll be able to get a better view of them, and I will have sorted out my whole how do I want to present them. Um, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Another 20 episodes or so, we will be showing what I was painting for the last 20 episodes or so. Have a nice day.